Hi, this is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com. Welcome to That Was the Week That Was in South Carolina College Baseball for March 23rd through the 29th. We'll take a look back at a few of the notable events over the past week, talk about the team of the week for who played best this week, go over the team rankings, also the Palmetto Pulse as to who's hot and who's not, look at the schedule for next week, and a few other things that are going on as we go through here. First, we're going to look back at some of the notable games over the past week. Of course, on Tuesday night over at Clemson at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, a interesting game between Coastal Carolina and Clemson. Tigers got off to an early lead, then Coastal rallied with 8 runs in their final 3 at-bats and wound up winning the game by a score of 11-9. Darian Horn was effective closing out the game for the Chanticleers. Clemson missed out on some opportunities, and again, they lost. Their defense did not help them, but that's been a tendency of what's been going on. But it was a great game. Then also on Tuesday night, North Carolina and South Carolina played up at Charlotte at Truist Field. Gamecocks were up early 1-0 first inning. Then the Tar Heels got 2 runs at the bottom of the inning. Stayed that way until the middle innings, and North Carolina started pulling away, wound up winning 9-1. Carolina got good pitching, but not much offense. That's been kind of the story for the Gamecocks over most of this past week, as we'll talk about more later. Also on Tuesday, USC Upstate went up to play number 21 Tennessee. They got an early run without the benefit of a hit in the first inning. The Vols came back, took a 2-1 lead. Upstate tied it. And then going to the bottom of the 9th inning, Tennessee got a walk-off 2-run homer to win that game and send the Spartans home disappointed, but they had played very well in that game. Also on Tuesday, the couple of Division II games. Francis Marion played Catawba up at Kannapolis at Atrium Health Park, and the Patriots knocked off Catawba by a score of 14-10. Catawba was a top 5 team in most of the Division II polls, including number 1 in the coaches' rankings. So that was a nice win for the Patriots to get that. Also on Tuesday, Newberry knocked off North Greenville. The Trailblazers, also a consensus top 10 top team, were right on the border of being number in the top 5. Wednesday, Adrian Canonis of Morris had a nice day. He had a 3-run homer to cap a 6-run 9th inning as the Hornets came back to beat Bob Jones by a score of 9-6 in a game at Riley Park, opener of a 3-game series. Got a good, nice performance by Canonis. Then he did even better on Thursday in part of a doubleheader. He had a pair of 2-run homers to help the Hornets tie the game. Then they wound up winning it on a walk-off and went on to sweep the doubleheader and the series against North Greenville. Morris has 4 wins this past week. They only had 3 going into the week. Also on Thursday, Miami and Clemson started their series, ACC series, early, and the Hurricanes took advantage of more Clemson miscues. They wound up winning 8-3 in 10 innings thanks to 5 unearned runs on an error by the Tigers. Clemson's defense, again, has been shaky. Aiden Canuck, for whatever reason, just cannot get much in the way of run support. I don't think that Clemson scored a run in support of him while he's still in the game since February the 20th. That was his second start of the year. That's a tough way to go. But again, the Tigers dropped the first game of that series to Miami by a score of 8-6. Now, one thing too, in the second game, I mentioned that Clemson committed an error in the 10th inning of that Miami first game, and it was committed by Tristan McClatty. Well, McClatty came back on Friday night and hit 2 home runs and a double, and he was the hero as Clemson beat Miami to even up that series. Just kind of goes to show you that you can be down one day and up the next, and that was the way it was for McClatty. Then on Saturday, Miami got up early, 4-0. They got a grand slam to double it to 8, and Clemson wound up closing back within 8-6 before they lose. But Clemson, again, dropped 2 out of 3 in the series. They had lost 5 straight before that Friday night win. Clemson is now 19-10 overall and 2-7 in the ACC. Of course, that was a good series for them to be on TV, but the Tigers just didn't get enough done. Also on Saturday, couple of off-the-field things going on. Over at Spartanburg Methodist College, they retired the number 11 jersey number of former longtime coach Tim Wallace before Saturday's game against Bryan College, or a doubleheader actually. Tim was the head coach for the Pioneers for 34 seasons. He won 1,351 games over there. He sent a lot of guys to four-year schools and to the pros. He was in 3 Hall of Fames, just really had a very successful career. But last November of 24, he developed some health issues. It turned out being diagnosed as brain cancer. He took a leave of absence early in the 2025 season in the anticipation or hope to be able to come back. But he had to wind up retiring in April of 25 and died a month later. But SMC will remember him and all the contributions he made with this uniform number posted on the wall out there at Mooneyham Baseball Field. So it was a nice honor for Tim. Tim was a great fan of PalmettoStateBaseball.com. Always did whatever he could to help me out. He was big at helping me get the Region 10 standings lined up right, also getting the Region 10 tournament schedule set up. So, I'm going to miss him. He was a great fellow. Also on Saturday, Francis Marion honored the 20-year anniversary of their team going into the Division II World Series. The first time and only time so far that the school has been to the D2 World Series. That was a nice honor for them. And they bounced back and won 2 games against Mount Olive on Saturday as part of that celebration. So that was a nice couple of wins. Also on Saturday, up at Bowie's Creek, Dylan Johnson of College of Charleston threw out his 43rd would-be base stealer to become the school record holder in that category. He had been tied with Irvin Roper at 42 since earlier in the week he threw out a runner, but he broke that on Saturday. The bad news for the Cougars is they wound up getting swept in all 3 games up at Bowie's Creek, but they were tight games. Not much consolation in that, though, as you go through there. Moving on to Sunday, a couple of pretty nice games. Winthrop, which entered the day with a 4-game winning streak and having won 10 of their last 11, fell behind Charleston Southern early, 4-0. Then they scored a run in the 6th, a run in the 7th, 2 in the 8th on a home run, 2-run homer by Corey Waters. And then in the 10th inning, Waters delivered a sacrifice fly to give the Eagles a 5-4 walk-off win, a series sweep, 6th straight win, 11 wins in their last 12. The Eagles, Coach Mike McGuire, are playing very well right now. They're 6-0 in the Big South Conference. That's about as good as you can do through 6 games. And they are 21-7. Like I said, they've won 11 of their last 12 games, so things are nice there. Also on Sunday, Coastal Carolina struggled a little bit in the sense that they were pushed to the extra innings. They wound up beating Marshall by a score of 5-4 on Jordan Taylor's 10th inning sacrifice fly. That completed a series sweep for the Chanticleers. They're now 9-0 in the Sun Belt Conference. They've won 31 consecutive games against Sun Belt Conference competition dating back to last year, including regular season and postseason play. So they're playing awfully well. They are 20-7 right now. They've won 7 straight games through Sunday. Let's take a look at the team of the week for this past week. A couple other things before we go on to team of the week. South Carolina, they mentioned they didn't get much in the way of hitting, got good pitching on Tuesday against North Carolina. Friday night against Georgia, they out-hit Georgia 9-4, wound up losing 5-2 thanks to a grand slam in the 2nd inning. On Saturday, they wound up getting beat 3-1. They were held to 2 hits. Again, the pitching held up pretty well. On Sunday, they got off to a 6-2 lead, and with Brandon Stone going, and they went into the 5th inning, went to the bullpen, and the bullpen failed the Gamecocks down the stretch. Carolina wound up losing that game 9-7 as part of a series sweep at Georgia. Of course, Bulldogs are good, number 7 in the country. But the Gamecocks, if they'd have been hitting on the first 2 games like they did the Sunday game, they might have done better than losing all 3. They got 13 hits on Sunday, but could not hold on. And again, it's just kind of the way things have been going for Carolina this year. When the hitting's going on, the pitching's not, and vice versa. It's for a Carolina fan, it's almost probably like pulling for the Washington Generals against the Harlem Globetrotters. You know something bad's going to happen, you're going to lose, you just don't know when it's going to happen. But anyway, let's take a look back at the team of the week for this past week. I picked Winthrop. The Eagles went 4-0 over the week. They beat Davidson by a score of 11-1 on Tuesday. Of course, that's a couple of, if you stretch it out a little bit, Metro Charlotte area rivals. And then over the weekend, they swept Charleston Southern. The Buccaneers came in playing pretty good ball right at the time. But again, Winthrop beat them 4-0. They're now 21-7, as I mentioned, the team of the week. There were some other, lots of other good candidates for consideration. Benedict went 3-0. They swept Morehouse in the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. Coastal, as I mentioned, 7-0. They won 31 straight against the Sun Belt, 4 games in a row last week. Erskine got a conference sweep as part of a 4-0 week. Francis Marion got that win over Catawba, 2 wins over Mount Olive. Lander was 4-0. They got a sweep in conference play. Morris, as I mentioned, they had 3 wins going into the week. They got 4 alone last week, including a win over Voorhees and 3 over Bob Jones. North Greenville 3-1, bounced back from that midweek loss to Newberry with a sweep of Ferrum. The Citadel won 3 straight games, midweek game over Presbyterian. Then they wound up winning the first 2 against Western, a couple of nice wins, but Western blew them out on Sunday. 3-1 week, still is nice. USC Aiken, another Peach Belt Conference Series sweep as part of a 4-0 week. They also won the battle for the paddle against Augusta at SRP Park in North Augusta on Wednesday. USC Lancaster was 3-0. They swept USC Salkehatchie in region play. Voorhees was 3-1. They bounced back from that loss to Morris with 3 wins over Rust over the weekend, including a couple of walk-off wins on Saturday. They were up, it was 13-10. Rust came in and tied the score in the top of the 9th. The Tigers got a walk-off win on the bases loaded walk in the bottom of the 10th. Notable on that is Ethan Farrell of the Tigers got 2 wins in 2 days. He pitched a complete game in Game 2 of the doubleheader on Friday. Then he came in relief with the bases loaded. Tigers up by 1 run, no out in the 9th. He allowed a sacrifice fly, then retired the next 5 batters over 2 innings as well, and got the win when the Tigers came back to get that walk-off win. Also, Wofford got a 3-0 record last week, including a conference sweep of UNC Greensboro. Terriers 3-0 in the Southern Conference. They didn't play the previous week. How about the Palmetto State baseball team rankings? And instead of doing the vibes like I did in the past at a different time, I'll just go through and do it at the same time as I go down through the rankings. And for Coastal Carolina, they stayed at number 1 among Division I teams in the state. They're 4-0, 20-7 overall, won 7 straight games. I think the vibes are very nice right now. They're playing awfully good. They're going to get back some of their pitchers who've been sidelined for a while before too much longer. And the guys who've been pitching have been doing great. Ryan Lynch and Darren Wood have been lights out in relief. Darren Horn. Lights out in relief, doing well. Horn struck out 9 batters against Clemson for all 9 outs. He struck out 6 in 3 innings against Marshall on, I believe it was Saturday. So he's just really pitching well. And things are only going to look up for the Chanticleers so they can avoid injury and get the other guys back. Winthrop, I moved them up from number 3 to number 2. I moved them ahead of Clemson. The Eagles have won 6 straight games, as I mentioned. They're now 21-7. And I just felt like they're playing better than Clemson right now. Clemson's having struggles with their defense. They're among the lowest fielding percentage teams in the country in Division I. They've not been able to get enough hits to help support Aiden Canuck. You know, who would have thought that this far into the season he still does not have a win? That's just mind-boggling. But I tell you what it is the game of baseball. You know, you just never know what's going to happen. You can look on paper, but the games aren't played on paper. But, you know, Clemson, I know they're wanting to tighten up their defense, get a little bit better offensive support, particularly when Canuck's in, and just, you know, try to build from here. It's 2-7, probably not impossible for them to come back and win the ACC regular season championship, but it's going to be pretty tough this late in the season because they got so many teams to climb over. They pretty much basically have to win all the rest of their games, which would not be an easy thing to do. It'd be a great accomplishment if they did. But anyway, the Tigers are 19-10 overall. Wofford, I moved up from 6th to 4th. They're playing awfully well. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They got that sweep over UNC Greensboro. and I think they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. South Carolina, I have them staying at 5th place at 0-4 last week, 13-16 overall. I keep thinking, well, will I move them up? But the teams that are below them, for the most part, they've not done anything to show they're ready to move ahead of the Gamecocks. Carolina's just really struggled on offense for most of the season, and their pitching had kept them in the first 3 games of this week, but then it let them down on Sunday. I think that the positive that USC takes out of it is their offense came alive a little bit on Sunday. KJ Scobie had 3 hits. A couple of other guys had a couple of hits. But the Gamecocks just killed themselves with the bullpen troubles, and also some defensive plays that they did not make, where if they'd have made them, they'd have had a better chance at winning. But that's just the way it is. The Gamecocks are at home against Wofford this week, so we'll get to see whether I've got Wofford rightly ranked ahead of them. I moved Charleston Southern down from 4th to 6th after the loss to the series sweep by Winthrop. I just didn't think they're playing better than South Carolina right now, even though they've won more games, got a winning record. But I think the Buccaneers right now, they're struggling a little bit. Now, again, Winthrop's a good team. They're playing well. And, I think that the Buccaneers showed some moxie by coming back on Sunday, taking that lead, but they just could not hold it against Winthrop's comeback. Right now, things are going well for Winthrop. USC Upstate, they went 2-2 last week. I left them at number 7 in the rankings. They're 14-15. Had a chance to sweep UNC Asheville in the Big South, but they could not do it Sunday. A grand slam for UNCA got them the win. The Citadel, 3-1. They're now 12-14. They had 2 nice wins over Western Carolina to start the series, and then they just got pummeled by the Catamounts on Sunday. The Catamounts are playing pretty well. They've won, I think, 18 games this year. And, but they came alive offensively against the Bulldogs on Sunday. College of Charleston been kind of snake bit. They lost 3 straight games at Campbell. They were all tight games. The Sunday game was a walk-off. The college got close to being up at 500 week before last. Now they're down to 10-17. They've lost their last 4 games. So I'd say that the Cougars' vibes are down a little bit right now. Presbyterian got a win over Sanford in game 1 of their series, 5-24. It's been a long season so far. Got shut out on Sunday. I think the Blue Hose are probably their pulse is a little bit on the low side right now. They stayed in 10th place in my rankings. Not a lot of change up at the top of my Division II rankings. North Greenville stayed number 1. They went 3-1 last week. Swept Ferrum in a Conference Carolina series. 28-7 overall. They won 3 straight games, and I think they're playing pretty good ball right now. They stumbled against Newberry, but took care of business against Ferrum, and I think they're still, positives on their vibes there. Francis Marion, the same thing, coming off that 3-1 week. They're 27-7. 2 straight wins after losing that game to Mount Olive on Friday. Kept them in 2nd place. USC Aiken, I kept in 3rd place. They were 4-0 last week. They're now 25-9. I think things are going well for them. They got 3 run rule wins over Claflin in the Peach Belt Conference over the weekend. Lander also got a series sweep over Georgia Southwestern in the Peach Belt. They've won 4 straight games, and they are 25-9 overall. 20-14 overall. In 5th place, I kept Newberry. They went 2-2 last week. Got that win over North Greenville, but they dropped 2 out of 3 to a Carson Newman team that they probably felt like they were better than. Still, Newberry's 20-14, and they got the final game of the series in extra innings to finish with a 500 record for the week, 20-14. I moved Benedict up 1 spot from 7th to 6th. I think the Tigers are playing very well right now, really knocking the cover off the ball. Got 16 runs today. They got 19 in game 2 on Saturday against Morehouse. They are 3-0, 15-8 in overall, and they're 13-8 in the SIAC. Like I say, I moved them up from 6th to 7th. Erskine, I moved up from 7th. 6th to 7th. Erskine, I moved up from 8th to 7th because they played well. They got a sweep over the weekend. They are now 17-19, 4-game winning streak. Things are looking up for the Flying Fleet after some early struggles. Anderson, I dropped down from 6th to 8th because they went 0-4 last week, dropped again to Southern Wesleyan, got swept by Emory and Henry. I think it was. Yes, they got swept over the weekend, though. And, that was not a good weekend for the Trojans. I'm just trying to make sure I did have it right. Excuse me, they got swept by Mars Hill, up at Mars Hill. And Mars Hill has a winning record this year, just barely over 500. But, I think going into the game, Anderson probably felt confident they could take at least 2 out of 3 in that game, but they did not. Southern Wesleyan, I moved up one spot from 10th to 9th after they went 2-2 last week. Got a win over Emmanuel College following the win over Anderson midweek. Number 10 is Coker. They went 0-4 last week. They got beat 3 times by Catawba, which is no disgrace. But the Cobras are not having much luck right now. They've lost 8 straight games. They're 7-25. And like I say, I moved them from 9th down to 10th. USC Beaufort I kept at 11th place. I think the Sand Sharks dropped the last 2 games of the series at Columbus State after winning the first one, which was a little bit of a surprise. USC Beaufort's now 7-24. Again, I kept them at number 11. And number 12 was Claflin. They have not moved from there all season. Went 0-3 last week against USC Aiken. They're now 3-23 and lost 21 straight games. And as I mentioned before, they're just really having a tough time competing in the Peach Belt Conference. Maybe perhaps at some point the CIAA is going to re-sponsor baseball, if you will. And an interesting little side point, they're going to have a CIAA baseball tournament involving 4 member schools who do play baseball, but they have to play it in other conferences. And they're going to do that in May, and Claflin can compete in that. Maybe they'll be a little bit better matched up in that series. NAIA and NC National Christian College Athletic Association. I kept Spartanburg Methodist number 1, even though they dropped all 4 games last week. They fell below 500 at 16-17. Columbia International only played 3 games. They went 1-2. They got a nice shutout win in the finale of the series against Pikeville after getting beaten the first 2. And they stayed at number 2. They're 12-22 on the season now. Morris, I moved up from 5th to 3rd on the basis of their 4-0 last week. 4-0 record last week. Coach Zay Paul's team really played well. They put up a lot of offensive numbers, and they were able to do what they needed to do to win. Now 7-11, won 4 straight, and again they moved up from 5th to 3rd. Voorhees I kept at number 4. The Tigers were 3-1 last week. They bounced back from that loss to Morris to win 3 against Rust, as we mentioned earlier. And Voorhees is now 7-17 overall. Bob Jones I dropped from 3rd to 5th. The Bruins, of course, lost those 3 games head-to-head to Morris, and just an 0-4 week. They're 7-17 right now, and things have not been going too good for the Bruins there. They've really struggled on the bullpen, just from the games I've watched. Also been having some defensive issues that contributed to what's been going on with them. So they're looking for something positive to happen, I know. And among National Junior College Athletic Association and the U.S. Collegiate Athletic Association, I left Florence Darlington Tech at number 1. The Stingers went 3-2 last week. What really hurt them is they dropped 2 out of 3 to Gaston College in a head-to-head series at Daly Field. The Stingers went into the weekend 1 game behind Gaston College by virtue of losing 2 of 3 at Gaston College in the first weekend of region play. They got beat in game 1 on Saturday, came back to win game 2 against the Rhinos on Saturday. Then on Sunday, they fell behind early. They got a lead with a 6-run, I believe it was a 6th inning, maybe a 5th inning. Gaston College came back and tied it and wound up getting single runs in the 8th and 9th innings to win by a score of 12-10. And that dropped FD Tech 2 games behind Gaston College with 12 region games remaining. It's going to be tough because they don't play head-to-head again. Gaston College only lost to 1 game to another team besides FD Tech in the first loop through the schedule. And barring something surprising happening, Stingers are probably looking at finishing 2nd in the region behind Gaston College. USC Sumter I kept at number 2. They went 2-1 last week, winning 2 of 3 against Union. They're 23-1 overall. Ryan Pikatowski Jason Perry and Carew Bates have all really been knocking the cover off the ball for the Fire Ants. I know they feel pretty good about where they are offensively. I know they look that maybe if they get a break or two, they might could catch FD Tech and be tough, but it is within the realm of possibility. But still, they're showing that they're going to be a challenge for whoever they play in the Region 10 tournament. USC Union went 3-2 last week. They got their 20th win of the season. They're 20-16 now, and I left them at number 3 in the rankings. USC Lancaster, I kept at number 4. They went 3-1, including a sweep of USC Salkehatchie. Like Union, Lancaster's 20-16 overall, and the Lancers have won 3 straight. Aiden Ray had 8 RBI for Lancaster on Sunday in that win over Salkehatchie. Salkehatchie is 0-3 last week. They're now 3-33. They've lost 19 straight games. They're 1-16 in conference. I kept them at number 5. And number 6 is Denmark Tech. They played for the first time in about 3 weeks. Lost a couple of games to USC Union and went 0-2 for the week. And they're now 1-10 and lost their last 3 games. Again, they're in their first season of competition and trying to build something for the future as they go through there. Let's take a look at some of the standings before we go into the schedule for next week. In the ACC, Clemson, I said, is at 2-7. They're down in 13th place. Florida State is 8-1 in the conference. North Carolina and Georgia Tech are 9-3. Boston College, surprising 2 out of 3 over Virginia. Coached by the Eagles are coached by former Wofford coach Todd Donato. They're at 8-4. And like I say, Clemson's at 2-7. They're ahead of only California, who's at 1-8 in conference play. And Clemson and Stanford, which is 1 game ahead of them at 3-6, play head-to-head next weekend in California. So the Tigers may have a chance to move up in the standings if they can win all 3 games in that series. In the SEC, South Carolina and Missouri are tied at 1-8 for last place in there. The Gamecocks, Missouri and Carolina were picked to finish 15th and 16th, depending on which poll you wanted, but they're picked as the worst 2 teams in the league, and right now that is bearing up. Mississippi State is 7-2 right now. They're tied with Texas at 7-2. Also Georgia at 7-2. Florida is at 6-3. Alabama's at 6-3. How about Vanderbilt? They were at home against Tennessee this weekend, got 3 walk-off wins over the number 21 Vols. Vandy's now 5-4, and they're playing their way back into contention. The Sunday win for Vandy was particularly noteworthy. They went into the bottom of the 9th trailing 15-10 and got 6 runs, including a walk-off grand slam, to take that game by a score of 16-15. As I mentioned, the teams that are up at the top, 7-2 and 6-3. Texas A&M's 5-4, Kentucky's 5-4, Vandy's 5-4. Auburn and LSU are 4-5. Tennessee and Ole Miss are both 3-6. Tennessee got swept by Mississippi State at home this weekend, and Alabama swept Auburn, who was number 5 this weekend. So it's things are getting shaken up in the SEC. In the Sun Belt, Coastal Carolina is 3 weeks into this conference season. They've already got a 3-game lead over Texas State. The Chanticleers are 9-0 in the conference. Texas State and Louisiana Monroe are both 6-3. Another game back are Southern Miss, Arkansas State, South Alabama, Marshall at 5-4. In the Big South Conference, Winthrop's doing well. Now they had a bye the first week of conference play, so they played 1 less game than most of the teams that are in the conference. But Winthrop's 6-0. In second place is High Point at 7-2. USC Upstate's at 5-4. Then we have down Charleston Southerners at 2-4, and Presbyterians at 2-4. They're in a 4-way tie for 6th place in the conference. In the Coastal Athletic Association, it's been tough going for College of Charleston. They're now 5-7 in the conference. They are 6 games behind first place Campbell in the South Division. That was why this was such a big series. They could have possibly moved into a tie with the Campbells with a sweep, but instead they're now 6 runs back. It's going to be tough to make up that much ground this far late into the season. As I mentioned, Campbell's at 11-1. UNCW is 4 games back in second place, so Campbell's got a nice lead. And in between UNCW and Charleston is William and Mary, who is at 4-5. In the North Division, Monmouth, surprisingly, is 2 games up on Northeastern. Monmouth has a 10-2 record. Northeastern is 8-4 in conference play. Elsewhere, in the Southern Conference, Wofford is 3-0. They're the only unbeaten team in the conference after 1 week. Again, they started their region or conference play a week later. East Tennessee State's at 4-2. Percentage-wise, Mercer is also at 67 percentage with a 2-1 record. The Bears went out of conference this weekend and played at number 20, I believe it was, Oregon State, and they lost all 3 games. The Citadels at 3-3, tied for 4th place with Western Carolina, who they played this week. And so the Bulldogs have got a chance to move up. We'll see what's going on with the schedule next week here in just a second. Moving on, in Conference Carolinas, among the Division II schools, North Greenville is 2 games back of Young Harris at this point in the standings in Conference Carolinas. The Mountain Lions are 19-2, North Greenville 17-4, and tied for 2nd place with Francis Marion. So they're both trailing the Mountain Lions by 2. Erskine is at 12-9 in the conference, so they're 7 games back. And Southern Western is at 5-16. They're tied with Barton far back in the standings. In the Peach Belt Conference, North Georgia has a nice lead over USC Aiken. The Nighthawks are 19-2 in the conference. USC Aiken and Columbus State are tied for 2nd place at 13-5. That's like 4.5 games back. Of course, North Georgia will have a bye later on at some point this season. USC Aiken and Columbus State will catch them up in the schedule. The Lander is at 13-8. They trail by 6 games. USC Beaufort is at 2-19. They are 17 games back. And Claflin is at 0-18. In the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, Benedict's 13-8, as I mentioned. They are tied for 4th place with Savannah State at 13-8. Spring Hill is at 17-4. Albany State's in 2nd place at 16-5. Edward Waters is at 14-7. In the Appalachian Athletic Conference, hold on, I may have not printed out myself Atlantic Conference schedule standings. I didn't. I have to look that up while we're going. In the Appalachian Athletic Conference, Reinhardt. Let's try this again. Tennessee Western is in 1st place at 15-3. Got a half-game lead over Johnson, who's 14-3, and a full 1-game lead over Milligan, who's 14-4. Spartanburg Methodist is at 99. They're tied with Pikeville for 7th place. And also at 500 is Columbia International. They're 10-10 at this point in the season. In the HBCU Athletic Conference, Voorhees is sorry, I read right over it. Voorhees is at 6-7. They are in 3rd place in the East Conference, East Division, behind Talladega, who's at 11-0, and Stillman, who is at 10-3. The win over series sweep over Rust moved the Tigers past Rust in the conference standings. How about in Region 10 junior college play? The Gaston College Rhinos, as I mentioned, are in 1st place. They're at 15-3 in the conference. Florence Darlington Tech is 13-5, as I mentioned. In 3rd place is USC Sumter at 11-6. 4th place is USC Lancaster at 7-10. In 5th place we have USC Union at 5-12, and in 6th place we have USC Salkehatchie at 1-16. Let me look up the South Atlantic Conference standings. Again, I apologize. I had printed them out, I thought, but I lost them somewhere between the printer and my chair, which is about 2 feet away. But anyway, South Atlantic Conference standings. Catawba is in 1st place at 18-3. Wingett's in 2nd place at 16-5, followed by Lenore-Ryan at 15-5. Then Lincoln Memorial at 15-6. Newberry's in 5th place at 14-7. Coker is in 8th place at 6-15. Anderson is a game back of the Cobras at 5-16. That's the conference standings for all the teams in the state. Let's take a look at the schedule for next week. No games involving Division I or major college teams, varsity teams, on Monday, but they do have games in the Conference Carolinas JV or developmental team tournament. They'll have games in Florence on Monday, 4 games there, and 3 games at Central. The winners will advance to the conference championship, JV championship, the following week in Florence. On Tuesday, how about some of the games going on? We have Bob Jones is at Alice Lloyd as they try to snap their losing streak at 1 o'clock. State matchups, Voorhees at Columbia International at 2 o'clock. Erskine's at Claflin at 3 o'clock. We have Lander facing North Greenville at 3:30. That ought to be a good one. We have Presbyterian at Western Carolina at 5. College of Charleston's at Winthrop at 6 o'clock. Cougars try to get something going, but they're against a hot team. Francis Marion and Newberry, another good non-conference matchup at 6. Wofford is at South Carolina at 6:30. And Coastal Carolina is at the Citadel at 7 o'clock. Again, some good in-state matchups on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Clemson and Wake Forest play at Truist Field in Uptown Charlotte. First pitch is at 7 o'clock. This game does not count in the ACC standings. They just have a neutral site game so they can meet during the season. And on Thursday, as I may have mentioned earlier, I can't remember, but this coming Sunday is Easter Sunday, a very important holiday for Christians. And most of the teams in the state have moved their series up a day to avoid playing on Sunday. So most of the state's Division I teams will be playing on Thursday. Those games include Longwood at the Citadel at 11 o'clock at the Joe, a little matinee baseball. I'm guessing that the Charleston River Dogs must be playing that night. But again, if you live in the Charleston area, you want to see some daytime baseball, 11 o'clock at the Joe. Also on Thursday, USC Aikens at Lander at 5. High Point plays at College of Charleston at 6. Presbyterian, High Point's in first place and doing well. It's a non-conference series, actually, I should say. High Point from the Big South. Presbyterian's at Charleston Southern at 6. South Alabama's at Coastal Carolina at 6. Of course, the Jaguars are coached by former USC pitching coach Mark Calvey. USC Upstate is at Radford. The Spartans will try to avoid getting surprised up there by the Highlanders. Western Carolina is at Winthrop in another non-conference series at 6 o'clock on Thursday. Wofford and VMI play at 6 up in Lexington. And Texas, which was number 2 in the country this past week, I think they'll probably stay there because I don't think UCLA lost, will be playing at South Carolina. First game of the series is at 7 o'clock on Thursday. Longhorns got 3 walk-off wins over Oklahoma over the weekend. On Friday, some of the series beginning. Benedict's at Clark Atlanta for a doubleheader. Erskine is at Shorter. Florence Georgia Tech is at USC Lancaster. And again, these teams moving up so they don't play on Sunday. Gaston College is at USC Sumter. I know that FD Tech is going to be pulling for Sumter to pull some surprises to try to reel Gaston College back in. Longwood's at the Citadel again, as we mentioned. USC Salkehatchie is at USC Union trying to snap its losing streak. Salkehatchie is. Also, Southern Western is at Shawan. Young Harris at North Greenville. That's a big series in Conference Carolinas. The Trailblazers, old nicknames die hard. The Trailblazers try to catch up to the Mountain Lions. They're 2 games back. If they were to sweep, they'd move ahead of them. Anything else, and worse, the best the Trailblazers can do is be a 1 game back. Coker's at Emory and Henry. Columbia International's at Spartanburg Methodist, matching the conference's 2 state teams. The Appalachian Athletic Conference's 2 state teams. Catawba's at Anderson. Lenore Ryan is at Newberry. Toccoa Falls is at Bob Jones. That's one of Bob Jones's closest rivals. 6 o'clock game at Conisty Park. UNC Pembroke and Francis Marion play at 6 o'clock in Florence. UNC Pembroke's a dangerous team. They got a win by a no-hitter this weekend. We have USC Buford at Claflin. Something's got to give there. And Clemson and Stanford start their series on Friday at 9 o'clock in Palo Alto. 9:05 actually Eastern time. So the Tigers again will be starting late. They'll be the only team playing on Sunday, on Easter Sunday, involving a state team, unless for some reason a game gets postponed. But I'm not even sure if conference rules will allow you to move a game once it's been postponed that late in the season or in the week. But anyway, that's the roundup of what's going on, what went on last week, what's going on this week. You can always keep up to date with things going on at PalmettoStateBaseball.com. I provide updates on X under the handle of Palmetto Base, scores, schedules, other things like that. I've already done the daily recap for Sunday. It's posted at YouTube. You can look for it around here on my YouTube page. I'd really appreciate it if you just let me know if you enjoy me doing this. If you'd rather, if you don't care, but I try to do this as a service for college baseball fans in the state. A lot of the coaches tell me they enjoy it, but I don't hear much from fans. So if you like what I'm trying to do, please let me know. You can send me a direct message on my X account at Palmetto Base. Email me at rudyjones@palmettostatebaseball.com. But anyway, I hope you had a great Palm Sunday. I hope you're looking forward to next Sunday being Easter and another great week of college baseball coming up. This is Rudy Jones of PalmettoStateBaseball.com saying good night. Jesus loves you.